Hey folks, and welcome to another video doc from a plaintruth.info and questioning everything to find truth. Well, let's get into these holidays, these Christian holidays that we have, both April Fool's Day and also Easter on the same day. So I thought I'd give you a little background history into how these days came about and a couple others here. So Easter Sunday is a festival and holiday celebrated by millions to honor the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, described allegedly in the New Testament as founding 3 days after his crucifixion at Calvary. It's also the day children excitedly wait for Easter Bunny to arrive and deliver their treats of eggs. Easter is a movable feast which is chosen to correspond with the first Sunday following the full moon after the March equinox and occurs on different dates around the world, since Western churches use the Gregorian calendar while Eastern churches still use the moon Julian calendar. So the Easter follows the Easter star, Ishtar. Most historians, including biblical scholars, agree that Easter was originally a pagan festival. According to New Unger's Bible Dictionary, the word Easter is Saxon origin Istra, the goddess of spring, in whose honor sacrifices were offered about Passover time each year. By the 8th century, Anglo-Saxons had adopted the name to designate the celebration of Christ's resurrection. But why do they make it as astrotheology? The eastern star is in a certain position. Today is the full moon of Venus. Venus is Aphrodite. Aphrodite is reproduction. The eggs represent reproduction. It was all about paganism because the first day of spring was when the food would grow again. That's the resurrection. The food would be resurrected, and the Roman Catholic Church took over it, like they do when they put all their temples on top of old pagan sites. So the Eastern story comes from the Sumerian legend of Dumuzi, Tammuz, and his wife Inanna Ishtar, an epic myth called the Descent of Inanna, found inscribed in cuneiform clay tablets dating back to 2100 BC. When Tammuz dies, Ishtar is grief-stricken and follows him to the underworld. In the underworld, she enters through the 7 gates, and her worldly attire is removed. Quote, naked and bowed low, end quote, she is judged, killed, and then hung on display. In her absence, the earth loses its fertility, crops cease to grow, and animals stop reproducing. Unless something is done, all life on earth will end. After Inanna has been missing for 3 days, her assistant goes to the other gods to help. Finally, one of them, Enki, remember the stories from way back when, the Anunnaki, Enki and Enlil, creates 2 creatures who carry the plant of life and water of life down to the underworld, sprinkling them on Inanna and Dumuzi, resurrecting them and giving them the power to return to the earth as the light of the sun for 6 months. Light of the sun. After the 6 months are up, Tammuz returns to the underworld of the dead, remaining there for another 6 months, and Ishtar pursues him, prompting the water god to rescue them both. Thus were the cycles of winter, death, and spring like. The Sumerian goddess Inanna is known outside of West Mesopotamia by her Babylonian name Ishtar. In ancient Canaan, Ishtar is known as Astarte, and her counterparts in the Greek and Roman pantheons are known as Aphrodite and Venus. In the 4th century, Christians identified the exact site in Jerusalem where the empty tomb of Jesus had been located. They selected the spot where the temple of Aphrodite stood. The temple was torn down, and so the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was built, the holiest church in the Christian world, right over a pagan site. Dr. Nugent points out the story of Inanna and Dumuzi is just one of a number of accounts of dying and rising gods that represent the cycle of the seasons and the stars. For example, the resurrection of the Egyptian Horus, the story of Mithras, was worshipped at springtime, and the tale of Dionysus resurrected by his grandmother. Among these stories are prevailing themes of fertility, conception, renewal, descent into darkness, and the triumph over light over darkness, or good over evil. Easter was originally a celebration of Eostre, goddess of spring, otherwise known as Ostara and Istra. One of the most revered aspects of Ostara for both ancient and modern observers is a spirit of renewal. Growing food again. We can live. Celebrated at spring equinox on March 21st, Ostara marks the day when light is equal to darkness and will continue to grow. As the bringer of light after a long dark winter, the goddess was often depicted with the hare, an animal that represents the arrival of spring as well as the fertility of the season. This is from the fine work of Akariah S., or D.M. Murdoch, as she's also known by. Christ as the solar hero. The need to time the Eastern celebration or resurrection to coincide with the vernal equinox demonstrates that Christ is not an historical personage, but the sun. The fact of Easter being the resurrection of the sun has been well known for centuries, just as the, quote, the Savior's, end quote, birth at the winter solstice has been recognized as another solar motif. And that solar motif, again, starts at the autumn equinox when the constellation, the southern constellation, hosts the sun allegedly going down and hanging on the southern constellation after August 21st, after the autumn equinox, and it is said to hang on the cross for 3 months. There it lays until December 22nd. When December 22nd, it dies on the cross and stops going down on the southern constellation cross, whereas on December 25th, the sun, S-U-N of God, rises once again. Food will be grown. Life will go on. A pagan ritual taken over, put right on top of the Christian mythology and legend. So, finishing up with D.M. Murdoch's work, Christ is the Son of Righteousness with divine beams. Concerning Easter is the letter 1 for 329, Bishop of Alexandria, Athanasius. Remarks, quote, again, the Son of Righteousness, end quote, causing his divine beams to rise upon us, proclaims beforehand the time of feast, in which obeying him we ought to celebrate. Christ is thus the Son of Righteousness with divine beings. So, April 1st, tracing the origins of April 1st, April Fool's Day. The tradition of April Fool's Day has been observed in at least 5 centuries, but it suggests it dates back to nearly 2,000 years or more, despite the day being marked by many countries around the world. An ancient Roman myth tells the story of the god Pluto abducted Proserpina, the goddess of grain and harvest. All about food, folks. Proserpina's mother could only hear the voice of her daughter when she searched for her in the vast expanse of the underworld. The fruitless search ended in vain and inspired the idea of a fool's errand. However, the concept of a fool's errand has also been linked to other historical events. According to biblical theory, the 1st April is the day that Jesus was sent from Pontius Pilate to Herod and back again, a journey which has been associated with the old expression of sending someone on a fool's errand. During the Middle Ages, the number of celebrations developed which appear to have evolved from the early pagan festivals, appear to have evolved from early pagan festivals and served as direct predecessors to April Fool's Day. The most important of these days was Festus Fatorum, the Feast of Fools, which evoked out of the Saturnalia. Regarding the origins of April Fools relates to the change of calendar in 1582 when Pope Gregory XIII ordered a new calendar. The Gregorian calendar replaced the old Julian calendar. A number of ancient cultures, including the Romans, celebrated the New Year's Day on or around the 1st April, but the new calendar called for the New Year's Day to be celebrated the 1st of January. According to popular explanation, those who refused to accept the new date or did not learn about it and continue to celebrate the New Year's Day, the pagan's New Year's Day, on 1st of April, were reportedly subject to pranks and ridicule and rumored to have been called April's Fools for observing the holiday months later. So a couple more here. The Christian calendar, roots of the Western Christmas. We covered Christmas already. This is the symbolism used. The church also symbolized the pagan sun god as in the round sun-like wafer used in the Roman Catholic Eucharist. The Roman Catholic monstrance displays a round wafer of bread called the Eucharist host. In post-medieval times, it took the form of a sunburst on a stand, usually topped by a cross. The Christmas tree. This is also pagan origin. The Roman winter solstice was marked on December 25th of the Julian calendar. They knew that the solstice meant that soon farms would be green and fruitful again, and they marked the occasion by decorating their homes and temples with evergreen boughs. In fact, a fir tree was common in pagan Rome as it is today. In Rome, the fir tree related to the Baal Berith, a pagan messiah and a form of Baal worship practiced by ancient Israel. Holly, with its prickling leaves, white flowers, and red berries, symbolizes the male reproductive urge. The Puritans banned Christmas because of its pagan origin, and today Seventh-day Adventists don't celebrate Christmas or any other religious holidays or festivals. All right, then staying on the Eastern Star, since Easter follows the Eastern Star, ministers are mini stars. It's all astrotheology. They've taken the mythology, the astrotheology of the heavens away from us and made up their own stories. What's this amounted to? So the Order of the Eastern Star has about 10,000 chapters in 20 countries and approximately 500,000 members under its General Grand Charter. It's a Masonic appendant body to both men and women, established in 1850, by a noted Freemason, Robert Morris. It was only adopted and proved a body of the Masonic fraternity in 1873. Originally, a woman would have to be a daughter, widow, wife, sister, or mother of the Master Mason, but the order now allows other relatives. The emblem of the order is a 5-pointed star with the white ray of star pointed downward towards the manger. The letters fatal surrounding the center pentagon in the emblem stands for the fairest among thousands, altogether lovely. They take the 5 stars, have virtues. The virtue of obedience to duty represents the virtue of religious principles, represents the virtue of loyalty, represents the virtue of endurance in trial, and the last one, electa, the mother, represents the virtue of endurance of persecution. So that's the Eastern Star, the Women's Freemason division. And then we got the Knights Templar that still rule today, Red Cross, Christopher Columbus, Knights of Columbus, all of them have this red cross. Rothschilds, Roths means red, Shield means shield, Red Cross, they're all on the same team. These guys have been running the show a long time. So what date is this associated with? Who can tell us? Friday the 13th. Remember, it's supposed to be evil and it's a bad day and you get spooked, don't walk under a ladder, and Friday the 13th, all by programming into our minds. So how did that come about? After the fall of Acre in 1299, the Knights Templar lost their stronghold in the Holy Land. This would ultimately lead to their demise. In 1303, there's those numbers 33, the Templars had set up their headquarters in Paris. They were an order who had lost their purpose but still controlled enormous wealth. This unstable environment set up a power play by King Philip IV. Philip's kingdom was deeply in debt to the Knights Templar, and he feared their power. After the Templar banks denied Philippe another loan, he moved against them. On the morning of Friday, October 13, 1307, Philip had scores of Templars arrested in France, including the order's Grand Master Jacques de Molay. Many were sent to the Tower of Chinon, where they were brutally tortured until they confessed to false charges, which included heresy, homosexuality, financial corruption, devil-worshipping, fraud, spitting on the cross, and more. No, that's what they actually did, folks. This is a Christian's version story of the Knights Templar. It's titled specialoperations.com. No, that's what they actually did. King Philip was turning against them because of all the abuse. Despite the absence of any other evidence that was coerced by torture, the Pope Clement V issued an edict dissolving the order under enormous pressure by Philippe. Jacques de Molay was executed in 1314. Philippe never believed any of their charges were true. He moved against them mainly out of jealousy and greed, blah, 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 but that's not the real story. So how many hundreds of thousands of Christians celebrate Easter never knowing this history? It's incredible how they don't even know their origins of their holidays and where they actually come from and what the original derivatives of, because they can't go back in history farther than basically a little bit before the Christ event. But let's see what they have to why Easter is so important. Jesus is, according to Fox News, Jesus' followers rejoiced at Easter and developed deep faith. It wasn't just that Easter showed them a really amazing miracle. No, the joy of Easter is even deeper than that. Easter shows us that perfect love always wins, except we're not perfect. In the end, whatever powerful people might try to do to silence love, God's way is always stronger. Easter shows us that our mortal bodies die, but life for us continues. Hey, it sounds like reincarnation. Easter shows us that we need not fear death. Death no longer has dominion over us. The holiday celebrates a complete reorientation of the universe. Love defeats hate. Hope defeats fear. Sacrifice defeats greed. Mercy defeats might. Life defeats death. If you celebrate Easter, you're celebrating the beginning of growing food so we can all live again. But you're also celebrating God's great love for us, a love strong enough to defeat death itself. Happy Easter to you all. All right, this is Plain Truth Out. I hope this educated a little bit onto our common history of dates, and we'll catch you on the next video. Plain Truth Out. Love one another. Peace.